Chapter 1. Invasion Day. The first sign of the alien invasion came in the form of strange auroras that danced across the sky, brilliant swirls of red, green, and purple stretching over cities and oceans. At first, people were mesmerized, believing they were witnessing a rare natural event. Social media exploded with photos and videos, calling it the most beautiful sky Earth had ever seen. Then, the EMP waves hit. Across the globe, lights flickered and died, cars sputtered to a halt, aircrafts fell from the sky, and entire cities plunged into darkness. Within minutes, the modern world crumbled. Communications went silent, hospitals lost power, and chaos erupted in the streets as people realized they had been cut off from each other. That was when the alien ships arrived. The Xerath Collective, a ruthless species of conquerors, descended from the sky like predators swooping on helpless prey. Thousands of ships emerged from massive rifts in the atmosphere, their jagged hulls glinting in the sunlight. Unlike anything humans had seen before, these vessels resembled giant metallic insects, their surfaces pulsating with eerie blue energy. They didn't announce themselves. They didn't negotiate. They attacked. Massive energy blasts from alien warships struck the ground, leveling cities in seconds. Skyscrapers crumbled to dust. Entire neighborhoods were consumed in flames. Across the world, people ran in terror as drones hulking four-legged machines poured from alien transports and began sweeping the streets, obliterating anything that moved. The fall of defenses. At military bases around the world, governments scrambled to respond. Fighter jets and tanks were deployed, and troops mobilized to confront the invaders. But nothing worked. Bullets bounced off the invaders' exhaust suits, and missiles were intercepted mid-flight by alien energy shields. In the heart of Washington, D.C., General Mark Collins stood in a war room, watching satellite feeds flicker in and out of existence. Cities that were still transmitting, Tokyo, London, New York, showed scenes of chaos and destruction. Fires raged across entire blocks, and alien drones stalked survivors through the streets. A soldier ran into the room, out of breath. "Sir, our jets are down. We've lost radar over half the eastern seaboard." Collins gritted his teeth. This wasn't a war. It was a slaughter. Dr. Sarah Holt, a leading scientist in electromagnetic warfare, stood beside him, her hands trembling as she looked at the screens. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours," she said. "Our weapons barely make a dent." "We can't give up," Collins growled. "There has to be a way to fight them." But the truth was undeniable. Earth was losing. The invaders had the advantage in firepower, technology, and precision. They had conquered dozens of civilizations across the stars, and to them, humanity was just another species to subjugate or exterminate. Pockets of resistance. As cities fell and governments crumbled, small groups of survivors began to fight back. Soldiers and civilians joined forces, armed with whatever they could scavenge, hunting rifles, Molotov cocktails, even alien weapons ripped from the hands of dead invaders. These resistance cells formed in the shadows, striking from the ruins, hitting alien patrols where they least expected. In the wreckage of New York, a group of firefighters, police officers, and former soldiers staged an ambush on a Xerath patrol. They detonated explosives beneath an alien transport, sending it crashing into a skyscraper, and scavenged plasma rifles from the wreckage. The survivors began spreading word through underground channels. "We fight. No matter what. We fight." Meanwhile, in Europe, hackers began breaching alien signals, attempting to intercept their communications. In Brazil, guerrilla fighters used the dense Amazon rainforest to stage ambushes against alien landing parties. Across the world, humanity was learning how to fight from the shadows and how to turn fear into defiance. A glimmer of hope. In the underground bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Collins and Dr. Holt met with other surviving leaders to discuss their next move. Despite the overwhelming odds, Collins refused to believe the fight was over. "This is what the Xerath expect," Collins said, slamming his fist on the table. "They think we'll roll over, just like the other civilizations they've conquered. But we're not them. We fight." Dr. Holt hesitated. "Mark, we can't fight them head-on. They're too advanced." "We don't need to win in a straight fight," Collins said. "We just need to hit them where it hurts." Holt's eyes widened as a plan began to form in her mind. "If we could disrupt their command structure, cripple their ability to coordinate." She trailed off, excitement building. "They're using a hive mind system, every drone, every soldier, every ship connected to a central command. If we cut off the head," Collins said, finishing her thought, "the rest of the body dies." It was a desperate plan, but it was the only chance they had. The alien command center, a colossal mothership, was somewhere in orbit, directing the invasion. If they could find a way to destroy it, the entire Xerath war machine would collapse. Collins leaned toward Holt. "Get your team ready. We're taking back this planet." Holt gave a grim smile. "We'll show them what happens when you try to conquer humanity." As the bunker buzzed with activity and survivors began organizing for the final fight, the tide of the war began to shift. Humanity had taken its first steps toward fighting back. The battle for Earth was far from over. But one thing was clear: the Zereth had made a terrible mistake. End of Chapter 1. The fight for humanity's survival had begun. But this was just the beginning. The next chapter would see the resistance grow stronger, and the alien invaders realize that conquering Earth wouldn't be as easy as they thought. Chapter 2. The plan to turn the tide. Days had passed since the world's leaders fled into bunkers, leaving cities to fall into chaos. The resistance was all that remained: small, scattered groups of soldiers, scientists, hackers, and everyday citizens. Despite the odds, they had refused to give up. But their sporadic victories weren't enough. To save humanity, they needed a coordinated plan to strike at the heart of the Zereth war machine. Beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a fortified resistance base, General Mark Collins and Dr. Sarah Holt gathered what little remained of Earth's military and scientific minds. The goal was simple: destroy the alien mothership, sever the hive mind command network, and shut down the invasion. The challenge: the mothership was still in orbit, surrounded by energy shields strong enough to survive a nuclear blast. "We need a way to bring those shields down," Holt said, standing in front of a flickering hologram of the mothership. "Their whole fleet and ground forces rely on this Nexus system. If we hit it hard enough, we can cripple everything at once." The gathered resistance leaders exchanged uneasy glances. None of them were space engineers or interplanetary war tacticians. They were out of their depth, fighting an enemy with superior technology. But that didn't matter now. They had to find a way. Breaking the code. Holt adjusted her glasses and gestured to a stream of alien code running across the screen. "We've been intercepting Zereth signals, thanks to hackers from Berlin and Shanghai. We've finally decoded part of their communication network." Collins leaned in. "What do we have?" Holt smiled. "They transmit their command sequences through relay stations on Earth. If we hijack one of these stations, we can upload a virus into their system and force the mothership shields to drop for a few minutes." "And how exactly do we get access to one of these stations?" a former Navy captain asked, crossing his arms. "We'll have to storm it," Collins answered grimly. "It'll be heavily guarded, but we don't have a choice. We'll need to strike teams 1 to take out the alien relay and plant the virus, and another to hold off reinforcements." Silence filled the room. Everyone knew this mission could cost them their lives, but they also knew it was Earth's only chance. "Building a weapon, even if the shields go down," the captain said. "How do we destroy the mothership? We don't have anything left in orbit." "We make our own weapon," Holt replied, excitement gleaming in her eyes. "We've been working with salvaged alien technology from downships. If we integrate that tech with one of our old ICBM missile platforms, we can build a railgun powerful enough to punch a hole through their mothership." Holt pulled up a blueprint of a makeshift railgun, a monstrosity made from alien plasma cores, scavenged generators, and the husk of an old military launcher. It wasn't pretty, but it would get the job done. "We'll fire the railgun from a launch site hidden in the Nevada desert," Holt continued. "We'll have one shot. If we miss, we lose." Collins stood tall, determination in his voice. "Then we don't miss." The strike team assembles. As night fell over the resistance base, the chosen strike teams prepared for battle. Soldiers cleaned weapons and adjusted armor scavenged from fallen Zereth drones. Engineers made last-minute tweaks to the railgun's components. Civilians stitched together medical kits and gathered supplies. Among the soldiers was Maya Alvarez, a former Marine sniper, now leading one of the ground teams. She checked her plasma rifle with steady hands, knowing full well that this mission could be her last. "I'll cover your back," said Ethan Park, a communications specialist and her closest friend. "Always do." Maya gave him a nod. "Just don't get yourself killed before I do." In another corner of the base, Collins walked through the ranks, offering words of encouragement. He knew many of these fighters wouldn't make it back, but their sacrifice was necessary. This was humanity's final stand, a race against time. The plan was set. As dawn approached, the resistance would launch a simultaneous assault. Ground teams would infiltrate a Zereth relay station in the mountains of Colorado and plant the virus to disrupt their shields. The railgun crew in Nevada would prepare the weapon to fire at the exact moment the shields dropped. Resistance cells around the world would launch coordinated attacks on alien patrols and installations, drawing as much attention as possible away from the relay station and the railgun site. "We'll give them too many fires to put out," Collins said during the final briefing. "By the time they realize what's happening, it'll be too late." Holt placed a hand on his shoulder. "We only need to win once, Mark. Just once. The first moves, As the sun began to rise, the resistance launched their assault. Fighters around the globe took to the streets, hitting alien targets with everything they had. Explosions lit up the night sky, and drones swarmed in response, moving to contain the human uprising. In Colorado, Maya's team moved silently through the forest, approaching the alien relay station hidden deep within the mountains. The air was cold and still, the only sound the hum of alien machinery. They knew they had only minutes before the Xerath realized what they were doing. "Stay sharp," Maya whispered into her radio. "We get in, plant the virus, and get out. No mistakes." Meanwhile, in the Nevada desert, Holt's team made the final preparations on the railgun. The weapon hummed with energy, its alien power core glowing faintly. The countdown had begun. All or nothing. The assault was underway, but the clock was ticking. The Xerath forces would soon realize that these attacks were more than random skirmishes. If the virus wasn't uploaded in time, or if the railgun misfired, humanity would lose its only chance to turn the tide. "This is it," Holt whispered, standing by the control console of the railgun. Failure wasn't an option. Far across the battlefield, General Collins raised his rifle and barked orders through his comms. "Hold your ground. Whatever happens, we fight to the end." The fight for Earth had truly begun, and humanity's final gamble was in motion. The next few hours would determine the fate of the planet and the future of the human race. End of Chapter 2. The pieces were in place, and the Resistance had set their plan into motion. Now, they could only hope that they had bought themselves enough time. In the next chapter, the final battle would begin, and humanity would learn whether courage and defiance were enough to defy an alien empire. Chapter 3. The final battle. The Resistance's plan was in motion, and across the globe, the war for Earth reached its climax. From the Amazon jungle to the streets of Berlin, humans launched coordinated attacks on Xerath forces, drawing drones and shock troops away from the critical targets, the relay station in Colorado, and the railgun launch site in Nevada. Every skirmish, every ambush, every sacrifice bought the strike team's precious minutes. But it wasn't enough for the Xerath not to notice. They knew something big was happening. Reinforcements were mobilizing, and time was running out. Infiltration and upload. Deep in the Colorado mountains, Maya Alvarez and her strike team crept through the forest under the cover of darkness. They had reached the alien relay station, a towering structure of glowing blue tendrils, pulsating with energy, extending deep into the earth. Drones patrolled the perimeter, and alien soldiers stood guard, their armor shimmering in the moonlight. Maya signaled her team. "We stick to the plan. Ethan, get that virus uploaded. I'll cover you." With a nod, Ethan Park slipped toward the control console, hidden at the base of the relay. As soon as he plugged in the virus, alarms blared across the station. The Xerath had detected the intrusion. "Move, move," Maya shouted, raising her plasma rifle and firing at the nearest drone. Her shot pierced its armor, sending sparks and alien fluids flying. Ethan frantically typed commands into the alien console, watching as the virus began its work, corrupting the command network. "It's uploading. Just need a few more seconds." Seconds were a luxury. More Xerath drones poured into the clearing, weapons humming with lethal energy. Maya and her team fought with everything they had, holding the line as explosions rocked the relay station. "Almost there," Ethan yelled as progress bars filled on the screen. A plasma bolt grazed Maya's arm, burning through her jacket, but she gritted her teeth and kept firing. The virus uploaded with a final surge, and the alien console sparked and died. "We're in," Ethan shouted. "The shields are down," firing the railgun. In the Nevada desert, Dr. Sarah Holt and her team scrambled into action. "The shields are offline," she shouted, watching the data stream from the relay station. "It's time to fire." General Collins stood by the massive railgun, his face grim. The alien mothership loomed overhead, a menacing silhouette in the twilight sky. They had one shot to bring it down, and they weren't going to miss. Holt punched in the firing sequence, and the railgun's generators roared to life, glowing brighter as they charged. The weapon vibrated with raw energy, scavenged alien tech amplifying its power far beyond anything Earth's military could have imagined. "Firing in 3, 2, 1, fire," Holt shouted. The railgun unleashed its payload, a blazing beam of plasma-infused metal that tore through the sky. With a deafening roar, the shot streaked upward, piercing through the Earth's atmosphere and punching a hole through the heart of the alien mothership. The collapse of the invasion. On board the mothership, the alien command nexus ruptured, sending waves of chaotic energy through the Xerath fleet. Without the hive mind to coordinate them, drones and soldiers across the globe froze in place. Ships spun out of control, their pilots disconnected from central commands. The mighty mothership, now a crippled hulk, erupted into a series of explosions. Fiery debris rained down, some falling into the ocean while other pieces broke apart and burned up in the atmosphere. The once imposing vessel now lay in ruins, a smoking symbol of the invasion's failure. On the ground, Maya and her team watched as the drones around them collapsed mid-stride, their blue lights flickering out. All across the battlefield, the alien war machine fell silent, and the resistance fighters who had survived the carnage stood victorious, some cheering, others falling to their knees in disbelief. "We did it," Maya whispered, exhaustion and relief washing over her. Ethan gave her a tired smile. "Told you I'd cover your back." Victory and sacrifice. At the Nevada railgun site, Holt and Collins watched the remains of the mothership burn in the atmosphere. For a moment, the two stood in silence, knowing the war was over. "We won," Holt whispered, as if trying to convince herself it was real. "Yeah," Collins said, but his expression remained somber. At a cost. The victory had come at a steep price. Cities were still in ruins, millions had died, and the world they had known would never be the same. But Earth was still standing, and that was what mattered most. A new beginning. In the days that followed, the remnants of the Zareth army were hunted down, their ships dismantled, and their technology salvaged. Nations across the globe began working together to rebuild, sharing resources and knowledge in a way humanity had never done before. The survivors, scarred but defiant, vowed to create a world stronger and more united than ever before. At a makeshift memorial near the Rocky Mountains, Collins, Holt, Maya, and Ethan gathered with other resistance fighters. They looked out at the stars, knowing that the threat from beyond the skies was far from over. "They'll come back one day," Holt said quietly. "Maybe," Collins replied, his voice resolute. "But when they do, we'll be ready." As the first rays of sunlight broke over the mountains, a new dawn rose for humanity, not just as a species that survived, but as one that fought back, and won. End of chapter 3. The invasion was over, but the story of humanity was just beginning. They had learned the hard way that the universe was full of dangers, but they also learned something even more important. Earth belongs to those willing to fight for it. And fight, they would.